Hello. Hi, my name is Kranti Manchikanti. Welcome to the AI Runtime interview series. We cover the messy parts, evals, agents in production, inference, reliability, cost, and everything around AI. And in this series, we want to go deeper with one practitioner at a time on what they're actually building, what broke, what they have learned, and anything around it. And I'm so glad we have Thomas here. So, yeah, Thomas, do you want to give a little bit of intro?
Sure. My name is Thomas Haffenreffer. Thank you for having me on your podcast. I have been focusing on building out kind of almost agentic operating systems for myself just to help me manage my own life for, I'd say, about 9 months to a year at this point. I really started looking at kind of Obsidian and some of these very freeform self-management tools and realized that there is a perfect molding in or melding in with using agentic systems to help you manage it. And it's kind of really grown from there. So I'm happy to talk about a couple of my workflows and we can get into it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Glad to know. So, even before getting into it, I'm curious, how did you even come up with that idea?
It's trial and error. I would say that the biggest thing for me is I'm a messy person. And so two things is one, a structured way of managing what I'm doing from a day to day inside of work and outside of work doesn't work super well. I've tried to do things like set up my own Kanban board. I had one set up with my girlfriend, did not particularly work well. And I realized that, hey, I need a really freeform way of thinking and a really freeform way of keeping all my notes. One of the issues that you run into, right, is then how do you retrieve the correct context when you're working on something? If you have taken notes on a podcast or a book 6 months ago, how are you going to remember those key insights? And there's a couple ways to go about that by hand or without using, AI to help you surface these insights, which learning is important. And then from there, you can kind of automate those processes so that you don't always have to go spend the time to do it, which is quite useful.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's a great way to think about it. Like, firstly, figure out what you're exactly doing, and then like put that into like some structure, and then like try to automate it. Awesome. Yeah, that's so cool. So, yeah, let's talk about like what tools and the stack that you started to use,
Sure.
or if you have switched between them,
Yeah,
or
totally.
why did you switch things and things like that.
Totally. Yeah. So the way that I'd say is I became a busier person and inside of work and outside of work. And that required me to start keeping better context of what I was doing on a day to day and then expanding that horizon out to what am I doing for the next week, next month, next year, 5 years, 10 years, right? It's a fantastic idea to try to have that long time horizon right now. Very difficult given how fast things are moving. I fell into and found Obsidian a little while ago. I found it very useful to have a very freeform way of creating connections. I actually worked very shortly with Cherry Tree during college, which is somewhat similar, building out a personal wiki, but it's a little bit different. I fell into the book How to Get Things Done by David Allen and then How to Take Smart Notes. My current workflow is very similar to both of those. So there's a dedicated kind of primary index page of everything that I'm thinking about wanting to do that has a link to every single one of my, conversations like this podcast has a note in it, right? I've already written my
Nice.
conversation and I will build it afterwards to give better context or books that I'm reading, things along these lines. So I built out this system that's kind of an in between of it. And the best way to explain it is you have that one index note, right, which is your to-do list, as well as kind of linking to everything that you're working on. Then from there, there's sub-projects of that track kind of your to-do list within those sub-projects. And then finally, for the how to take smart notes angle of it, you read a book, right? As you're reading that book, you then take your notes along the way to capture the important details to you
Yeah.
about that book. And then you then build these atomic notes. So you then divorce an idea from its location. So let's say one of the ones that I would say is the dangers of centralization or the dangers of decentralization of information, right? Those are high level concepts that will show up in more than one place of book that you're reading or podcast you're doing or listening to. So you then coalesce all that information to one location. And this, as you can see, looks a hell of a lot like a RAG graph or like some of the agentic memory that people are working on right now. So basically that then led me to saying, oh, wait, there are agentic systems that are using similar formats to this to surface information. Instead of having myself go in and write every single one of these notes, I'm going to start utilizing, agents or LMs or whatever, the word du jour you want to use right now is to help me with that. Is there any point of that you want me to go further into?
Yeah, I'm curious on. I'm sure like you're going back and forth. If you think about the real life, you're doing digital and then you're doing like physical activities like books and
Totally.
things like that.
Yep.
So how are you switching between those?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and I'll build on it real quick. The way that I do books now has really changed. So when I started, I attempted to scan the pages in. So I was taking a highlighter when I was reading, I was
Yep.
highlighting, scanning the pages in, and then trying to use AI to pull out the information of like, hey, what did I highlight? Doesn't work particularly well. I maintain too much context. The file sizes get, large. Computers are awesome right now. We can store a lot of information, but still was kind of a pain. What I switched to is actually I have my computer set up to record the audio as I'm reading. And I'll say,
Okay.
hey, page 158, take the note. So I'll say, I'm reading Karp's book, The Technological Republic, right now. Interesting book. And as I'm reading, I'm just saying like, hey, he's making this point, this connection. Well, this reminds me of something I wrote on this other, page or book that I read.
Yeah.
Hey Claude, hey Codex, whoever I feed this into, please make that note, please make that connection for me. And it's been really good. It's been very, very accurate. So that's currently how I operate when reading.
Nice. Okay. So that's
Yeah.
cool. So you do have like speech to text,
Yes.
text to
Yep.
speech. Okay. So that you embedded yourself.
Yes, which I know you talked about using Whisperflow quite a bit at this point, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I use that.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, different versions to it, right? Like either like some apps have that speak options and some do not. So you just have to have that native way of like going back and forth. And that's a good one to
What
have.
one of
Yeah.
the ones
Let's get into deeper on. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I would say really quickly, I'll add, on the go, one of the best things that I found is being able to take voice memos on my phone. So I have an iPhone, transcription on
Perfect.
voice memos is decently good, and it's free. So being able to do that and then feeding that voice memo into like kind of an intake point, as they say, into whatever system you're using, and setting up skills or rules or an agent that's specifically trained on what are you saying, what is your text to speech pick up incorrectly for you, or things along these lines. It has been very, very helpful for me.
So cool. Yeah. I mean, I thought about it, but I actually never go there because I'm just like worried that people will just consider me I'm some random weird person talking to myself.
Yes. Yes.
Cool. No, I'm glad you're doing that. I mean, the good part is you have the context and you're in the zone in that time period, snapshot of time, and then
Yeah,
that's
totally.
saved. So that's so cool.
Good man.
Cool. So let's get into the idea of like how you created that entire system for yourself. Did you start with like forking somebody's like app and then build on top of it? So okay, how did that learn? I'm sure
Yeah.
a ton of learnings too, like during that period, right?
Yeah. There's a joke that people make about, and I'm sorry, guys, Arch Linux users. I'm gonna pick on you for a quick second. There's a tendency to say, why would I use someone else's code, or why would I use someone else's product when I can build it myself? Right? I have the chops to do it. I'm gonna do it, and you spend a ton of time working on a piece of work or code that someone else has done. There's an upside and a downside. If you have the time, it's a great learning opportunity. So I've fallen a little bit into that hole right now, but it's really messy, right? Everything's bespoke to me. I'm using, as I mentioned, voice notes on my own phone. I'm using Obsidian. I'm switching between using Claude, Codex, Gemini, Grok. And so there's no one correct answer, if that makes sense. I can speak a little bit in terms of the workflow is really a pure play of a melding of the setup of getting things done by David Allen in terms of there is, as I said, that intake index list that is used kind of as an index for myself, and then also for my Claude is my primary day-to-day driver, and Codex is kind of the secondary right now for doing more technical work. I will say, I know we and some of the questions you sent over beforehand, speaking about kind of being efficient with token usage. I can speak a little bit towards that. So it's really important to play around with your retrieval system. So one, you can use QMD for doing semantic search over Obsidian-based notebook, which again is just a large amount of markdown files if people are unfamiliar with it. Secondarily, Obsidian has a CLI plugged in. I forget the guy that manages and maintains Obsidian, but he pushes out his Claude skills as well. And so I just kind
Nice.
of pay attention to what these guys are doing. Generally speaking, the people that build their software know it pretty well. So I'm gonna trust how they work. But again, when you're using different means of retrieval, this is, I think, something that's important to talk about. There is what you are retrieving and how it is thinking to go retrieve. You're going to get slightly different outcomes. And so it's kind of important to play around with like, hey, do I just want to have a index page, for instance, that has links to every single properly named note, and then allow for one of my systems, either, like I said, Codex, Claude, or whatever model you might be using, to go in and try to surface information from there? Or do you want to go use semantic search? Because you will
Right.
get different results based off of your retrieval.
Got it. So how would you like know that whether the result is like what you're expecting? Do you have like some sort of
Sure.
way to
Yeah,
manage them?
yeah, and I think that becomes really difficult because most of my usage for agents up until more recently has not been coding. It has been kind of corralling and managing personal relationships in terms of information about what I've talked to with people, or books that I'm reading, or articles I'm reading, or YouTube, or that I'm watching, things along these lines. The way that looks like for me is looking at those atomic notes, right? Where I'm taking these very abstract ideas and I'm trying to coalesce all the information from different locations. So I'll have my system run a semantic search right across it, or go do a search over the index pages and then pull in their information, and we'll talk back and forth and kind of tweak it. And then again, there's a lot of conversation around kind of making sure that you're updating your skills that you're working on. So
Right.
then have a conversation back and forth and say, hey, I think that you messed up here, here, and here. Let's talk about how to do minimum changes to your skills to make sure that we don't have to talk through this again. And I think it's largely been just trial and error.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's like not like one thing set in stone, move on. It's more of like you keep iterating on it until, or I think that changes forever, I guess.
Yes, and it's not been smooth always, right? You have to be a little bit careful about protecting your data, because when you have kind of a single location of truth, you can mess it up pretty quickly. So make sure that you have some saved backups. Make sure that you're able to roll back, possibly put it in a repo, so you get some version tracking on it. And that's kind of how I'm operating. It's a little bit fast and loose, but it is all self-contained and on my own system, so I feel pretty comfortable with it.
Awesome. Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, and I know you mentioned switching between, or like having primary and the secondary, like Claude, Codex, or like that setup. So how did you choose between, hey, these like, maybe the model is working great for my like complex workflow, that's why I want to keep it. And then there is cost associated with it. That's why like I chose something else. Like what's your ideas behind it?
Yeah, I think that drives me to a little bit larger of a conversation. Right now, the world of AI feels a little bit separated between people that are doing subscriptions, right, and then paying for token
Mhm.
usage. If you're on a subscription, you are getting tokens for cheaper, the reality of it. So there's a little bit of, if I am doing the kind of more text-based work and not as much on code, I have not had issues running into token
Hold on, I think your audio is like breaking a bit.
testing 1 2 3.
Yes, this is good.
Second, I apologize about that.
No, all good.
I have not run into token usage limits. So a lot of that is based off of, again, my own opinion, because again, this is looking at text, this is looking at writing, this is developing my own ideas, right? So switching between the different models and kind of seeing how they think and how they're operating, and being very subjective, is how I'm operating for that. Over for doing coding based work, a lot of it in terms of how I am approaching it is going to be adversarial. So I'm having each of the models look at the code that the other one wrote, pointing out where the bugs are and things along these lines, and starting
Sure.
to very much build out very strong evaluations of doing your unit testing, doing smoke testing, kind of that manner. I am still squaring the circle for myself in terms of handing off between models. So do you have the smart model do your planning, and then you hand it off to, for say, dumber models, or smaller models, or do you flip that and you have kind of a dumber manager per se and really smart
Yeah.
workers? I have not squared that circle for myself. That's where I'm currently still playing, and I'm still struggling on getting a persistent model such as Hermes or OpenClaw for long periods of time that I'm happy with how it's operating,
Mhm.
without
Yeah.
having to pay exorbitant amounts of money for API calls to frontier models. So that's where I'm stuck right now, and what I'm working on
I got it.
personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been testing out like using that advisory pattern, like for the having like Opus type models, like suggest and then like guide the smaller sorted type models to execute. I was trying like Open Router
Mhm.
or even the local versions to like
Yep.
first understand the token count, and like some of that's kind of helping the token usage and like making things better. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm still making it like efficient, not zero yet.
Yes.
Cool. So let's talk about like some failures. I'm sure like you might have like hit the roadblock and said like, that's it. I'm done.
Yeah, sure. So for failures, I think that ties directly into what we were just speaking about. I have not been happy with having a persistent agent yet that is not tied into a ecosystem. So one of the things that I'm very worried about, which we saw social media, I always tie back to Chris Dixon and Read Write Own talking about this. Facebook, Twitter, all these things, they started much more open. Amazon, right? We started where it was much easier to build a business on it, and then they slowly kind of encroached and made it harder for you to exfiltrate your own data, and basically made you lock into using that platform for the future. I'm very worried about that happening with each of the model providers, right, and their harnesses. So I am worried about, for instance, spinning up and building out a workflow that's based purely off of, for instance, cloud agents that are going to be long running. because I suspect they will make it very hard to exfiltrate all of your information very, very soon. So something I always say to people is, hey, just make sure you don't get trapped in that walled garden moving forward as these groups become more competitive. So that's where I'm struggling right now. Where I'm thinking I'm having failure is that I have not found the right model architecture in terms of handoff between to optimize cost to make it reasonable to run a persistent agent and handle the workflows that I wanted to handle. That's where
Got
I'm
it.
stuck as of right now.
Yeah, I think that's a common problem and
Yes.
question in everybody's mind right
Yes.
now.
I
So
can speak to one more workflow as well that has been So another one I'm noticing with scraping, doing web scraping, that it can become rather prohibitively expensive for myself as of right now to continue to pay for computer usage to go to
mhm,
more complicated websites.
yeah,
The way that I've been playing around with this is using LangChain and LangGraph to then implement kind of a single run of computer usage, track where everything is, if it's a repeatable pattern, and then have that then turn into a playwright script. I think this is pretty common fare at this point, and then kind of having that self healing. I'm still not super happy with my success rate of accuracy, so I'm working on that with another person that is doing it manually. And our success
okay.
rate is still only in like the 70 or 75% in terms of our pull down, which is good, right?
Yeah.
Glass half full, glass half empty, depends on how you're going to take it.
Yeah.
But that's again
Is
an
the
area.
North Star like 90%? Is that the goal?
Yeah, we'll see, right? It's really then you have to think about what is the cost to continue to do that manually, or to have someone double check it. So it's this kind of profitability is always the thing I say you look at, or time utilization.
Sure. Yeah, I'm curious on like, I think you have the entire system set up right now, right? So how much or what do you currently have in the autonomous nature of like, without you actually getting involved, like things happen and then like what does it? If not, what do you want to do it like in the future?
Yeah, as of right now, like I said, I have not had a long running agents that I've been happy with. So I've set up a couple of ones. I've set up a personal like house assistant that is, everyone's first coding project. They make a to do list of like everyone's building out their personal assistant agent.
Right.
Has access to my emails, has access to my to do list, my girlfriend's to do list, our shopping list, that kind of stuff. I was not particularly happy with how kind of like the leverage that it gave us in terms of communication. It's just easier still to look at things. I
Sure.
think that really integrating all of your points of data, so your calendars, your emails, all this stuff. I think that finding the right way, especially when it's not just you and you're collaborating with other people, whether that be a business partner or a personal partner. I think that's
Sure.
really an area right now that's still difficult, or at least for myself. I would say, driving to your point, I don't have anything long running going.
Yet.
The,
Yet.
yeah,
Yeah.
the most persistent kind of work that I'm doing is just the long running goal setting using Claude, of doing a really good job of trying to plan out either an entire project or something along these lines and really build out goalposts to have these agents run, and then spend them out for 3 or 4 hours, let them go work. And I've been pretty happy so far with my results there.
Are you triggering that manually or are
Yes.
you running? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Makes
That's
sense.
that's where I'm still learning the best practices for myself.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hit the roadblock as well. I think like sometimes I do use a loop/loop or like Claude code side of things, not from like Claude.ai or even like other tools like which inject that behavior of like cron jobs and whatnot.
Yeah, I don't have any consistently running cron jobs as of right now, but like I said, setting up using planning mode and then moving into using planning mode to write a goal, and then
Sure.
operating using goals in Cloud Code, or kind of the equivalents in the harnesses or providers, has been pretty useful, and has gotten me to where I want in terms of building out some MVPs. My
Sure.
question to you is, how much are you now looking at your own code, or how much are you kind of evaluating the quality of what you're writing? What is your current process for that?
So I think like for me, I'm more of like switching from that mindset to so if you remember like test driven development, so
Yes.
that
Yep.
that era, what we have like switched our mindset from, okay, don't start building first, but rather think of the test scenarios. So I am getting into that zone
Yep.
now. It's like eval driven development, like whether you
Yes.
have an AI workflow that works for you or like at work, or have a automated setup or not, like how much of that is being used by AI. Because the reason so all my mind these days goes on that model reliability, how much of you can, or how much of the workflow can be completely reliable, just given you giving the access to model, and that's it, right? So if you're not relying on the model completely, so what else can you do? What can you do with the harness, right? So what can you do for the rest of the things? And comes like the evals as the first part. So that's what I tell people to start thinking through, having that evals, because think of what is that one thing, if that breaks, you'll close and shut this entire project down, right? So you start with that and say, okay, what are my immediate next steps to prevent something like that from happening? And then go from there, because that sets you up for success, at least not for failure immediately. And then like you keep, learning from that, and then iterate it over, and then have added to that. Again, that's also evolving. So that's my current state of mind at this point.
Yeah, it seems there's a large drive towards kind of, as you're mentioning, eval-based development. So that tracks to me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course, like we won't be able to like finish this conversation without talking about cost, right?
Yep.
So how are your token costs? Like, are you happy, not happy, like thinking to move?
Yeah. I would say one of the things that I fall back to right now on this conversation is, I forget who's everyone's on Twitter. Some person on Twitter made the comment of, if you're willing to spend $10,000 a month right now and buy a Mac Mini and buy a Spark, right, you are seeing what people's AI will look like in 5 to 10 years, realistically, if not sooner. There are people that are running frontier models 24/7 or multiple frontier models. I will not be happy until I'm able to do that personally, right? I can't afford to do that. Once that's $100 a month at some point, that'd be wonderful, right? That's doable.
Yeah,
As of right now, yeah, I'm playing around with, as I saying one of the things that's kind of preventing me from wanting to have persistent agents as of right this second is I'm largely relying on subscriptions. I am, so I have a Codex, I have a Grok, I have a Claude, and I'm switching around and playing with those and trying
sure.
to utilize the tokens as efficiently as possible, but also, get work done. I am also utilizing OpenRouter to be able to test some of the smaller models. So some of the newer Google models have been fun to play around with. That's really the area. I played around also with using one of my local desktops that's, I think it's got 16 gigs of RAM, not quite powerful enough, I think, to be able to
Sure.
kind of overnight, have it do work overnight for me. That's what I'd say right now is I think that I still feel somewhat kneecapped
Got
and
it.
stuck within
Yeah, I think one
subscriptions.
curious question, like what people talk about a lot, is trying to work with AI systems and then like trying to have to go back and reset in every conversation. Have you thought about or like started using any of these memory layers like in your workflows? Okay.
Yeah. So in terms of memory layers, again, this is a little bit of a jumping off point for me because the way that I've set up my Obsidian is my memory layer, where I have the agents write equivalent of memory documents into this large kind of brain organism that is
Yeah,
my vault.
sure.
I don't know how I want to split that out, or how I want to section out into either new vaults or just have it as one big mono repo style vault.
Right.
And I would assume that someone else is rolling a better version of this than I am right now, and I haven't found it. That's probably on me for not doing better research. But yeah, I think the memory layer is an area right now that there's gonna be a lot of focus, and it's something you should be working on if you're in the space.
Got it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. Yeah, I mean, if you have not looked into like some of these options, there are you could create like your own layers, or you could just have the same plugin mechanism. Like Mem0 is one option
Yep.
which I've tested like multiple times.
Yep.
Yeah, that's so cool. Another like couple other options like Letta and other ideas if you want to play around with it. Let's think about like, if let's assume that there is a person like me coming to you and asking, hey, I know nothing about this. I know about like, LLMs, AI tokens. I can maybe get subscriptions. How do I
You need to solve problems that matter to you, and I think that that's always the best motivator
Sure.
right now.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. I think that we're largely right now seeing within the software industry, people realizing like these are getting really good. These are getting to where they can really move forward with us.
Okay.
And I would say outside of that area, we are seeing still a lot of skepticism because to be pessimistic, I think that a lot of people played with LLMs or chatbots like 6 months ago or 9 months ago, and they got an idea of, oh, they can't do that much quite yet. Yes, we still have a lot of jagged edges. There's a joke about like, there's a car wash 50 meters away from me or whatever it is. Can I walk there? Should I take my car? And still kind of getting that jagged edge where an LLM is going to give you a nonsensical answer. What I'm driving to on this is I think that a lot of people outside of the tech space are not quite aware of where the models are. And I think that if you are in the coding mindset, you are able to think in a systems approach, to use a buzzword, and start to think about how you can apply that systems thinking to any other knowledge work area right now, I would say
Mhm.
is a big thing. That's where I think you'll have a lot of success and where I think that you'll be able to both motivate yourself by solving problems that are relevant to you, but then also kind of exploring and showing how this technology is moving out of just coding agents at this point.
Awesome. No, that's so cool and very interesting, like insights, like to think about optimistically and also
Yeah, man.
pessimistically. From a tools perspective, like, do you suggest if someone's starting from scratch, like go to Obsidian and like start from the repo from there, or how
Yeah,
would that?
I I don't want to tell people what to do. Here's my overarching advice that I'll say is everyone that I've talked to that I think is doing better jobs than I am right now, that has their systems more mature, they're doing very skeuomorphic things. And what I mean by that is their process looks a lot like how you run a human development team or how you would personally track your own information. And so although there might be systems that might be more token efficient or might derive better end results without human intervention, in terms of how you're having your agents interact with each other or things along these lines. What I have found so far is that we're at the point where still having very strong human visibility when you pop the
Sure.
hood per se
100%,
is
yeah.
really useful. So, hey, if you're currently using a Kanban style thing at work, or if you are tracking your personal life right now using a to-do list, if you're using, I don't know, like Apple Notes or whatever it might
Sure.
be, mimic your current working style and to see what friction points can you remove using AI. Can you decrease the total amount of time that you're spending looking at this, or can you get better results? Have it right. You press briefs, have it, all that kind of stuff is the simple answers is what I'd say.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a cool metric to track. I tried,
Yes.
but I didn't like completely work out. But I think what I ended up doing was, can I do more? I guess like I ended up like in that position. Am I able to achieve more than like what I'm currently doing using AI, and then like see if I can use the tools? But of course, that also comes with a cost, and like you justify what that cost means, like for your own workflow, and go from there. Cool. Yeah. So any last thoughts?
Yeah, I'll drive exactly what you're speaking about. There's kind of two ways to look at any problem, right? You can either reduce the current time and effort it takes to achieve a current goal, or you can try to achieve something that you've never achieved before or that no one else has achieved before. Work on both. That is an area for you to build your skills. I found that reducing cost and then allowing for you to do more right now, it seems to be pretty synergistic because you're able to get a lot of time back and think big picture. Be willing to take on larger tasks is all that I say right now.
That's awesome. No,
Yeah.
100%. I love the quote on like doing what you thought about that might not have existed before, and then bringing that to the forward. So that's awesome. No, I'm glad to have all of the insights, and I'm sure like there's a ton more to come. I'm sure like we'll keep iterating. And if there are like learners who are building similar to what Thomas has talked about today, and if you even like exploring even beyond that, let's chat about it. Like ping me or Thomas, and happy to go into in a deeper rabbit hole than this one.
I'm easy to find. I'm on LinkedIn, guys. I will say that best way to get to me is to shoot me an email. I have a website. It's just my first name, last name, all lowercase, no spaces, .com. It has my contact information. Reach out. Happy to chat.
Perfect. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much, Thomas. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having me and have a great rest of your day.
You too. Take care. Bye.